Well, hello. My name is Amy. I am the Senior Community Relations Specialist with the Better Business Bureau. I have been with BBB for about 6.5 years, and within my position, I travel throughout our particular office's fairly expansive service area and deliver programs just like this every single day. I was just in Weston filming a program for their Council on Aging, and they had their local community access station there to film as well, so this is a pleasure to be here. Our office is located in Marlborough, so very close, but we serve from our office all of Eastern Massachusetts, all of Maine, all of Vermont, and all of Rhode Island. So on any given day, I'm in any one of those areas delivering a program just like this, mainly on scams and fraud and identity theft, and just getting out into the public on behalf of our Free Speakers Bureau, delivering between 20 to 30 programs a month. So it's a pleasure to be here. Don't hesitate if you have a question throughout the program. I'm happy to, we're a small enough group for sure. We don't have to necessarily wait until the end of the program to answer questions you might have. I want to mention just a little bit about the Better Business Bureau and who we are before I jump into some of the major scams. And mainly because I think a lot of people are familiar with the name Better Business Bureau, but you may not know all of the facets of what we do. So, for example, a lot of people are familiar with us because you've utilized our free services after you've had a problem with a product or a service or a business. You reach out to us, we file a formal complaint, we reach out to the business, we help serve as the middleman between the two parties and help facilitate the dialogue and hope that we can come to some sort of solution or resolution to the complaint that you filed through us. We take calls like that every single day. We take formal complaints via our website every single day, but what we really want people to know is that you can utilize BBB free services before you make those decisions, before you purchase a product, hire a particular business, depending on the industry, pay for a service. Do a little bit of research on the front end of things via BBB, and you're less likely to have an issue with a particular business on the other end of things. So for example, sure. That's a great question. So we have a database of over 5 million businesses. You can access those businesses via bbb.org, or you can call us. We have our website, our email address, and our phone number. If you're not a computer person, don't worry about it. You can always call and speak to an information specialist Monday through Friday between the hours of 9 to 3. But bbb.org is our database where we have over 5 million businesses. Any business can register themselves via our website for free. Essentially, what that does is it generates a profile for them. So when I say we have over 5 million businesses, it means we have over 5 million business profiles on bbb.org. About 400,000 of those 5 million businesses are accredited businesses, and those are businesses that are able to utilize that BBB Torch of Trust, that BBB seal. And it means that those businesses have taken it a step further. They haven't just registered their business and generated a profile, they have applied for accreditation status with the Better Business Bureau. In applying, they have to have been established as a business for at least 6 months. We have to see a track record, and they have to prove to us that they have already been living up to our 8 standards of trust, and then they have to, if they are approved, continue to do so for the duration of their accreditation status. The 8 standards of trust range from cybersecurity, proper cybersecurity that these businesses have within their means, to responding to complaints within a timely manner. We need to know that these businesses are going to engage in communication with their clients and consumers. So businesses that are accredited that have complaints filed against them, like I mentioned earlier, you can file formal complaints through BBB. Businesses that are accredited, in order to keep their accreditation status, have to respond to those complaints within 30 days of that initial complaint being filed. It's one of those standards. And I would say probably the biggest thing, number one, they can't even get past the next step if they have not given over to us their proper licenses and certifications depending on the industry that they represent. So for example, if it's a roofer that needs a certain license, or a contractor, or an auto mechanic that has to be certified in a certain way, they have to not only prove to us that they are licensed and certified, but they have to continue to keep those up to date. And we don't just keep it within our internal database, we show it to the public via their business profile. So essentially, when you see that BBB logo, it means that those businesses have just taken it a step further. They've proven to us that they're in good standing. And it serves as like a thumbs up. However, we would never say, choose this business over this business, choose an accredited business over a non-accredited business. We just say, you know what, these are the facts that we happen to know about these particular businesses, and these are the facts we know about these businesses. And when it's an accredited business, we know that they're licensed, they're certified, they don't have complaints filed against them, and if they do, they've handled those issues. And if a business doesn't comply with these standards, whether they've been accredited for 5 years or 50 years, their status is revoked with us. And if, for example, you're going to our website and let's say you're looking for a roofer and you were to type in roofing and your zip code to the search bar, a number of businesses would pop up. Some of them would be accredited and some won't, but you'll know right away which ones are before you even click on their business profile because you'll see that logo associated with the accredited businesses. And I want to mention that you'll never see a non-accredited business, you may see a non-accredited business that has an A rating, but you'll never see an accredited business that has an F rating. So it's really important to know. It's not that the non-accredited businesses aren't trustworthy or credible or transparent. It's just that we know for a fact that the accredited businesses are, because of the information we have. So we would never say that a non-accredited business isn't worth your isn't necessarily at face value not worth your looking into in regards to wanting to hire them. There could be a non-accredited business that has an A rating and just hasn't taken it that next step, but you'll never work with an accredited business that has an F rating or a D rating or something like that. So I think I answered that a little, probably even more so. But that was great because I really got to explain a lot about what our website is all about and what information you'll find. And beyond the 5 million businesses that we have information on charity organizations, thousands of charity organizations. Just as we should be looking into the businesses before we hire them, we really need to be looking at the charities and just making sure that they're doing what it is that we want a charity to be doing, whether it's with the funds that we donate or with their administrative costs or their mission statement, whatever it is. We just want to be looking in to, one, make sure that the charity is legitimate, because it's very easy for someone to make up the name of a charity or say that they're a representative from a charity. We just want to verify, and you can do that via bbb.org, via our Wise Giving Alliance, or you can actually visit give.org, and on the handout, there's a direct link to that, but it's just give.org. Type that right into your search bar, and it will take you right to our charity portion of our website, our Wise Giving Alliance, rather. And then everything that I'm about to jump right into in regards to scams and fraud and identity theft and all that fun stuff, you can find on our website as well. We have a scam alerts portion of our website. And I also want to point out, before we even jump into any of these scams, that we have a scam tracker. We have a direct link to our scam tracker. Any information that you can pass off to us is incredibly helpful. We are a nonprofit organization, the Better Business Bureau, but we work very, very closely with local police, state police, and government agencies, like the Federal Trade Commission, the Attorney General's Office, the Massachusetts Office of Consumer Affairs, the Small Business Association Administration. And what this scam tracker does is we take in as much information as we can from people who maybe have received phone calls or letters or text messages or emails, any information that you can give us via our scam tracker. We take that information and we share it with authorities, the FTC in particular, the Federal Trade Commission, although we also have a direct number and website for the Federal Trade Commission on the handout as well, if you wanted to go directly to them for any questions regarding scams or fraud. But this handout in particular is just incredibly useful in regards to sort of a little bit of a one-stop shop for phone numbers and websites that may be helpful, especially as we start to jump into these scams. And I tend to start with the phone scams because I just think that they're the most annoying out of any of them. And because they've changed so much over the last few years in particular, because we've been receiving phone calls for what seems like decades, really, from scammers who are trying to get something out of us. But the tactic that the scammers had been using, I tend to call them, at this point, big red flag waving scams. We don't get as many calls anymore from people saying, for example, you won the Irish lottery, you won a free cruise, you won a free vacation, you owe $20,000, you won $20,000. Those sorts of things don't happen as often anymore because these scammers know that we're fairly savvy and it's so outlandish. The red flags go waving. The minute someone says I won anything free, let alone a free cruise or something exorbitant, you know, the red flags are going to go waving. We're less likely to fall for something like that. And so the scammers have kind of stopped using those particular tactics. And what's interesting and fairly dangerous about the tactics that they're using now is that they're now impersonating legitimate businesses and organizations that we may regularly associate ourselves with. They're called imposter scams. And they are impersonating our banks, our credit card companies, our phone providers, our electric companies, our cable providers, whatever it might be. And they are contacting us and pretending that they're a real representative from a real business or charity organization. And did you have a question?
You said there was a particular name for these scams? I missed it.
Imposter scams. They're called imposter scams, and they're some of the biggest scams. In particular, the IRS phone scam that has been going around for a few years now. Although I will say it cut down a little bit this past year, and I believe it's because they've started to catch these individuals. There was actually a den in India where they found 250 individuals making the IRS phone scam. And I think the head of the ring of the operation might have been a part of that. But they're finding them, and also we've become so savvy to that particular scam because it's been around for so long, the IRS phone scam. It's been around for a few years. At this point, we either know the IRS will never call us, or, you know, in general, or there's a scam going around called the IRS phone scam, and most people have received it at one point or another. But what's interesting, oh, sure.
They had an email version of that for a while.
Yes, absolutely.
I bought those, and I'm thinking, no, they don't email.
Yes, and email scams, actually the email phishing scams I'll touch upon in a little bit, absolutely, are very, very similar to the phone scams. And it's so dangerous, this new tactic that they're using of impersonating legitimate businesses and organizations, because especially if you're impersonating, let's say, the IRS, we may know that they'll never call us. We may be aware that they're going to send 2 pieces of notification through the mail first. But it still makes us anxious, a little nervous, right off the bat when we get that phone call. We might just be answering the phone and someone says that they're the IRS, and at least for a brief moment we're thinking, oh no, what's going on, what did I do? And then, for the most part at this point, we're less likely to fall for it as we may have been a few years ago. We also used to be able to say that the IRS will never call you. We can't say that anymore, unfortunately, because they've recently, as of 2018, started hiring a third-party administrative debt collection agency to make calls on behalf of them. However, you would still receive 2 pieces of mail, 2 notifications, then you would receive that call, and you would only receive this phone call if you have purposefully evaded paying your taxes. So I'm sure everyone in this room is fine, and even if you've received that call and it made you a little curious, we still recommend, and I'm going to touch upon the bigger picture here of when we should be doing this, hang up the phone on that particular individual in whatever fashion you like, and find the appropriate number for a local IRS office or whatever it might be, the actual number that's actually associated with that particular business or organization. Call them directly and say, I just received a call from someone that said they were the IRS. Was it really you? And you will be able to exchange information with that individual to confirm that you are who you say you are because you have initiated that call. And they might say yes. More likely, they're going to say no, but at least you have peace of mind knowing that you didn't give any information away to the person that had contacted you. And that is really what's so important to know. It's one of the best things that we can do in regards to the phone scams. It's not the best thing. The best thing that we can do is to not answer the phone at all, believe it or not. There's a few reasons as to why. One, if we can let the phone ring and let the answering machine pick it up, the more often we do this, the less likely it is that they're going to keep trying. It might take 5 months, it could take 6 months, but if we are not answering and our answering machine is picking up every time a scammer calls, and our neighbor is answering every time and saying, stop calling and hanging up on them or whatever it is, they're going to keep trying the other person, believe it or not, far more than they're going to try the person where it's just ringing.
Is now they're using private caller.
Yes.
And if you have friends that have unlisted numbers.
Yes.
You don't know.
Yes, it's very tough to know if the person that's going to be calling you is someone that you know or that you need to hear from or want to hear from. But, so that's why this only works if you have a voicemail. But most people have an answering machine or a voicemail system. If you have a friend or someone that needs to get in touch with you, I say they're going to leave you a message. They're going to leave you a message, they're going to tell you to call them back, and you can call them back at your leisure. Because we just can't be sure, even with the caller ID system, unfortunately, anymore, that the caller is who they are before you even answer. And you had touched upon something else. You mentioned, oh, I forget, I'll get back to it, but you had a hand.
Yes, I've been getting one that's been frequent. They actually leave a voicemail, and it's cut off at the beginning. But to follow up on this, you need to call. You know this one, I take it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So there's a reason why sometimes the scammers will leave a message. It's because it's probably automated, and that's why it's cut off more often than not at the beginning, because it heard your answering machine pick it up. And so by the time it's actually leaving the message, that's probably like a few seconds into their recorded message already. Not frequently, but it can happen, that they will leave a message for you to call back. A phone number within the message for you to call back. I tend to say it's better to assume that the calls coming in, believe it or not, are not from legitimate businesses and legitimate individuals. They're from scammers. And if you receive a phone call and you hear them and they say, I'm calling from such and such electric company, here's our number, call us back, or I'm calling from this credit card company, call this number, call this back. You can call them back, but don't call the number, A, that appeared on your screen, if anything popped up, your caller ID screen, or in the message. Call the number that you know. And it has happened to me. Our banks and our credit card companies, for example, are very closely monitoring our accounts nowadays because of how frequent fraud and identity theft is really running about. And so we may receive a call from our credit card company or our bank saying, we noticed a discrepancy. We want to make sure that it was you that made that transaction. We want to cancel your card and send you a new one. And I never answer my phone. I'm being 100% honest. I don't answer my phone. I let it go to voicemail, and if it's someone that I know and needs me, I'll call them back. But I will always take the time to find the appropriate number. So for example, I had a call once. I didn't recognize the number. They left me a voicemail. They said it was my bank or my credit card company. Said it was my credit card company, left me a message, left me a number in there, and I thought, it could be, but I'm not going to call that number back. I opened my wallet. I called the 1-800 customer service number on the back of my card. It took me 10 minutes. I was on hold. I pressed a bunch of numbers. I got to speak to a human, but I knew that I had initiated that call. I went to my wallet. I took out my card. I found the right number. I pressed the numbers that I had to press to get to speak to a human. And the number was different from the one they left me. You know, a lot of these big corporations, they have, dozens of numbers that you can contact. And maybe the number that they left me in that voicemail had a direct line to someone I could reach, but it was still worth it to me. And when I called, they said, yes, that was us. Thank you for calling us back. And I could exchange information in that manner, and it took me an extra 10 minutes out of my day to do that. If I had called, like I did, and they said, no, that wasn't us, that we didn't call you, there's no issue, at least then I would also have peace of mind in knowing that I didn't exchange any information with the number that had actually called me, whether it had been in a voicemail or I answered, which again I never do, but that's what I do. I just let it go to voicemail. And it's tough because our caller ID screens will say private or blocked or unavailable, and I'll tell you this, my aunt has a blocked number and she calls me and it says blocked, but I don't know if it's her or a dozen other maybe scammers that are out there, and she leaves me a message every time and she says, Amy, it's Auntie, you never answer when I call me back. And I call her back and I say, Auntie, I'm never going to answer when you call because I don't know it's you, Mm-hmm.
friend that has an email, when you call her, she picks up and she said, "This is Joanne. However, I am not answering my phone just so I can weed out annoying telemarketer. So if you are family or friend, leave your number and I will call you back."
That's really smart.
Change your mind to that.
You know what I would recommend? I think that's really smart to do. Have your voicemail system, have your recording say something very simple like that. "I'm not answering because I don't want to talk to a telemarketer. If you need me, leave me a message, I'll call you back." The only thing I would say is tell your friend Joanne, take out her name. Don't have it say you've reached Joanne. Have it just say, because believe it or not, that information does something, even just her name. And this is why we recommend the first thing to do is to not answer at all. The second thing to do is if we are going to answer, maybe try not to say anything and just let the person on the other end say something. Believe it or not, these scammers they make money off of any piece of information that they get from us. And sometimes it's as simple as us answering the phone. We say hello, they say Nancy. We say, "Yeah, it's Nancy." And then they go, "Check, there's something there." But just by answering, this is the main reason why not answering is the best thing. Because when we answer the phone, not only are we alerting the person on the other end that we are a human that they just reached, they called a number that was associated with a person and that person answered today, maybe they'll answer tomorrow or the next day. And they will continue to call us day in and day out. They will also sell our information to more and more and more scammers. They don't sell our information if we're not answering. They sell if we do answer. And they can make a certain amount of money based on how much information they get out of us. We answer the phone, they make this much money. We confirm our name, they make this much more. We confirm our address, they make this much more. And every piece that they get really, really adds up because the more information they have, the more personal the next caller can make it. They can say, "Hi, Nancy, I'm calling on behalf of this," or "I'm calling on behalf of that." And we know that they want our social, we know that they want our credit card number, and we are savvy enough nowadays to know we're never going to give that out over the phone if someone's called us. But believe it or not, even the other pieces of information, no matter how small they seem, it's a lot of information that can eventually add up that there could be some damage done via these scammers. And it's because it's circulating. They're selling it. And we are not targeted specifically, and I think it's important to remember that. No one is saying Nancy Smith in Stowe, Mass. is an easy target, let's get her, until you start to give information away. And then they'll start to call you more directly. But for the most part, we're phone call number 750 out of 1,000 for the day. And on Monday, they're going to call all 1,000 people. This one particular scammer is going to call 1,000 numbers, and they're going to offer everyone on that list a better interest rate on their credit card. And on Tuesday, they're going to call the same list and say that they're the IRS. And on Wednesday, they're going to call the same list and say that they're from a charity. And every day, they're just going to keep trying something new until there's something that actually piques our interest or there's something that we give into. I've had someone tell me recently, someone called and offered me a better interest rate on my credit card. And I don't even have a credit card. Why would they call me for that? And I said, no sweat off their back. You said you didn't have one. You hung up on them. They moved on to the next person. Tomorrow they'll try something new. That was just their tactic for the day. That's really how it works until we start to give away information, and then they will start to contact us directly and say, "Oh, well, this person gave away this, so maybe they'll give away even more." And that's really how it works. There are a few things that we can do to, unfortunately, not stop the calls completely. That's impossible. But we can sign up for nomorobo.com. If we register our landlines, it's free. It's $1.99 for cell phones. nomorobo.com. It's right on the bottom right-hand corner of the handout.
Does it work?
You've done NoMoRobo in particular?
Yeah, they don't work.
I have never met a person that signed up for this and said that it didn't significantly cut down on calls. Did you register your landline or your cell phone?
My landline.
Your landline. So this is what NoMoRobo does. It will cut down, your phone will not stop ringing. What happens is you register with NoMoRobo. If it is an automated call, a computerized, automated, recorded message that is coming through, your phone, once you're registered, now reads that it's automated. A telemarketer, legitimate, or scammer, it doesn't matter. It just reads that it's automated. Your phone will ring once, and your phone will hang up on you. So your phone will still ring. We recommend if you're going to answer the phone at all, even though we say don't do it, if you're going to answer, wait till the third ring, because most scammers don't bother waiting that long. They'll move on to the next person. And this also helps because if it rings once and hangs up, you know, oh, well, that must have been a telemarketer, that No More Robo was working.
No, I get a lot of those single ring calls, and then they're gone, because I did it on the national network, us.gov.
Oh, okay.
I did it there, and you can put without a fee, you can put your cell phones in too.
Is this the Do Not Call registry?
Yes.
Yes, so the Do Not.
But thank you, because I get these single calls I look at, so I just pick it up, and I have the landline program to my cell phone.
Yes.
And it's a single, one single ring, okay.
Yes, so try No More Robo as well as the Do Not Call registry, because the Do Not Call registry essentially was created years ago, we know it's been around for a while, to help weed out at a time where we weren't necessarily receiving a lot of phone scam calls as much as we are now. It was originally created to help us from helping to cut down on the telemarketers, on the legitimate businesses from being able to contact us. And it is still what the Do Not Call registry does. A lot of people receive a lot of phone calls every day from scammers, and they assume they're real businesses. They are not. If it is a real business and you are registered with the Do Not Call registry, they are not allowed to call you. However, if you are receiving calls and you are convinced that it is a real business, contact the Do Not Call registry and tell them, say, I'm on your list, I've been on your list for 25 years, and I'm still getting calls. And they will be able to say, you know what? That is a number that is associated with a real business, and they can then reach out to that business and tell them to stop, and they do, or they will say, that is not a number that's associated with a real business, that's a scammer. There's nothing that they can do, but they will take that information and report it to the FTC, or give you the FTC's contact information and have you report that number to the FTC. But it's like the BBB. If there's a roofer that's gone around and ruined 10 homeowners' roofs, and none of those homeowners have called to report it to the BBB, we have no way of knowing there's a terribly unethical business going around. Do Not Call registry works the same way. If there's a legitimate business that's calling us and we are not reporting it to the Do Not Call registry, they have no way of knowing that they should be contacting them and telling them to stop.
Verizon is my provider.
Yes.
And you can also block calls.
Yes.
You can block numbers. One of the things, I was doing something with them, and I was telling them how I block numbers, but it's getting to the point where, it's just getting
like
crazy.
10 a day, yeah.
What the person told me is, on some of these, you may block the last number, and they've linked through 4 and 5 phone calls, so you're not actually blocking the individual who initiated the call.
Yes. Yes, so 2 things to touch upon with this comment. Thank you so much. The first comment is check with your phone provider on what they offer you in regards to protection and services. Most cell phones have an unlimited amount of times in which you can press that little icon next to the phone number when it pops up. It's a circle with an eye. You press that every time there's a number, or when there's a number, scroll down, not even very far, and it says block caller. You can block it as often as you want, from what I know. Landlines, I think they give you a certain number, depending on your phone provider, that you can block. But call your phone provider. One particular phone provider might offer a different service than another one, but most of them offer something by way of not stopping the calls, but cutting down on them or diminishing them. And it takes a little bit of effort on our part for sure. And then the second part to your question.
Well, what they told me at Verizon is you have to be careful. Because
Yes.
maybe you think you're blocking them, but scammers are often originating, they're linking through 4 and 5 phones before they
Yes.
actually, so that number you're blocking isn't actually blocking them because they're just changing. That's why I call back and it's always an unavailable number.
Yes, and this is probably my least favorite.
No longer in service.
Yes.
They just call.
My least favorite portion of the program, because it leaves very little hope for the calls to stop completely. It's that most of these calls are coming from overseas. Most of these calls are coming from across the border. They're coming from throwaway phones that then maybe we'll use for one day at a time, maybe 1 week at a time. They're coming from individuals who are traveling from country to country to country, and I'll get into that in a moment. But most importantly, they are coming from phones where the caller has manipulated the number that is appearing on your caller ID screen. That is why it can say private or blocked or unavailable. That is why it can look like it's coming from Colorado or California or Utah, or coming from Maynard or Stowe or Weston, or you look at your caller ID and it has your phone number on it. There are scrambling devices. Sometimes they're tangible and they're purchased. It's a tangible object that is purchased and connected to the phone, and it manipulates the number that appears on the caller ID screen of those who they're calling. However, there are also free phone apps. A free app can be downloaded on anyone's phone that has access to a particular service, free. And this app can be downloaded for free. You can manipulate numbers the same way that a scrambling device can be manipulated, or can manipulate. For example, I was at a conference not long ago, and a member, an employee of the Attorney General's office, I was part of a panel. He stood up to the podium. This is all within like 3 minutes. Stood up to the podium, asked an individual in the first row for her phone number and then the number of someone else in her phone. Didn't ask for the name associated with it, just her number and a number in her phone. She gave them to him. Within 3 minutes, her phone rang, and it said it was her husband calling. It had her husband's name because he downloaded a free app on his phone. It was so fast. It was unbelievable. I know. And that's, I think, it doesn't help us in regards to what we really want, which is for our phone to just stop ringing. But once we're aware that these are the tactics and the means in which these scammers are going to contact us, I think we're just so much more less likely to bother answering and to exchange information in that first initial call. And it does feel kind of helpless, and we feel as though there's so little that's within our control. But believe it or not, there's so much that is. We may not be able to control how often our phone will ring, but we can control whether or not we're answering, and if we are answering, whether or not we're exchanging information. It's that easy. It's just an extra little like annoyance. You know what I mean? It's just something extra that we have to deal with, but we are in so much more control. We never, ever, ever have to fall victim to a phone scam. We never do. And all it takes is letting the phone ring, letting our answering machine pick it up, or answering, hear who it is on the other end, hang up on that number, find the appropriate number for your doctor's office, your bank, your credit card company, your phone provider, and call them back. The scammers get away with so much of what they get away with because they do not think we're going to take the time to do that. And how rarely do we do that? And that's honestly as simple as it is. But knowing that that imposter tactic is what's really happening now is so important. Because even this grandparent scam that's been going around for a while, and I think I overheard you talking about it in particular.
Maybe 6 months ago.
And did they
A friend
call?
of ours, her had the grandmother scam too. She lost significant. A friend of ours lost a significant amount of money. Luckily, my mother-in-law lost the phone number, so she called our son to get the phone number of the police officer who had arrested him. And he said, we need to talk here.
Wow.
Yeah, pure luck.
That's amazing. But that is one of the tactics that they're using. So it used to be, and it could still happen every once in a while, that the caller impersonates your grandchild themselves. But now what they're doing is they're calling and impersonating the authorities that have taken your grandchild in. They don't have to worry about disguising their voice to make it sound like your grandchild. They can just impersonate the authorities, and then they have the authority in your mind to be able to say, and make sure, leave your line open. We're gonna call you back. Leave your line open. We want to be able to get in touch with you in case we need you, which is what usually prohibits people from calling the grandchild themselves.
One of the interesting things is we did a lot of, my wife and I both did a lot of searching on what these scams were all about. And there was one of the things, there was one of the recommendations is not to answer the phone, because if some of these scammers get part of your voice, they can run it through an algorithm and actually imitate, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
It is
You would think it was.
Another reason
They
not
would
to
think it was me.
answer is that they can record you. There was this, in particular, this "can you hear me" scam not long ago. Did that happen to you? Yes.
And you say yes, and right away,
They don't know.
then they hang up.
They ask qualifying questions that they know you're going to say, you're more likely to say yes to. Or you answer and say, hello, and they say, oh, would you mind answering just a one-question survey? Is there anyone in your household that takes a daily vitamin? I think 90% of humans take a daily vitamin, so 90% of the time they call, someone's going to say yes. And saying yes alone, they can then take that and manipulate that information. Or they can just manipulate the entire conversation, and there is some very tech-savvy people out there, and they can move words around to make it sound like you're saying another sentence, but essentially what they do is they could use it to verify that, or to use it to manipulate and make it seem like you verified or agreed to something. Mm-hmm.
What I do is I pretend I have laryngitis.
That works too. You know, it's up to us to push back, and if you want to pretend that you have laryngitis, you want to pretend you can't hear them, you want to pretend that, whatever it is, hang up. Don't be afraid to hang up. It's so important that we push back because we are our best advocates. Whatever it is, just make sure that you're not giving that information away. And I say that the phone scams are the most annoying, but they're not necessarily the most dangerous. The computer scams are really dangerous because when you're on the phone, an hour later or 3 weeks later, you might realize, I should not have said that. I don't know if that, I don't know if that was really them. I don't think I should have said that. We're not able to do that when it comes to the computer because a lot of times we click on things that we don't realize we've clicked on that could be malicious, that could have been a virus that is now taking all of our information. And that's why the computer scams are so dangerous, in particular the email scams that we were mentioning a little earlier. They're called email phishing scams because they look very official. They have the format and the logo and the header, and they were people that were manipulating Bank of America and FedEx and UPS and Verizon and Comcast and the Better Business Bureau, and you receive an email that you might regularly receive. And if you're an accredited business, for example, with the Better Business Bureau, and you receive an email that looks like it's coming from us, and it says, Dear accredited business, there's been a complaint filed against you. Click on this link to handle it. You're going to click on that link. And the links are so dangerous. It could be in an email. It could be in an attachment. It could be in a text message. Be very cautious of these links. Because what happens is we click on them. We have no way of knowing that we've clicked on something that we shouldn't have. And when these scammers get a hold of our information, and it happens like that, they will go ahead and use our information quite smartly. And I do use that term loosely, but they are smart. These scammers are more likely to scam 5,000 people out of $1 each than one person out of $5,000. Because I'm going to notice a $5,000 charge or $500 or $100. I'm not as likely to notice $1, $2, $3. Mm-hmm.
I was on my computer, and all of a sudden it just stopped. Next thing you know, I got a phone call, and they said, this is Microsoft. Are you
Yes.
having problems with your computer? Naturally, I said yes. And they said, well, we can solve that problem, and this is some service that we work for Microsoft of it. Oh, the bottom line was they wanted $140 to
fix
join,
it.
yes, for this band of electronical people that could solve all your problems. So I just hung up at that point.
Good.
My wife got that one, and we actually ended up having to cancel the credit card. We had to put a watch on our Citizens Bank was fantastic. They put a
Good.
watch on all of our accounts,
Good.
changed her business account, but because she just panicked for that split second because it's not just a personal computer, it's her business computer.
Yes.
And it did it. I shouldn't have done that. but it's too late.
It's
Once you
nerve-wracking.
thought of it, it was already too late.
It's nerve-wracking, especially with the computers, because it's a whole other language, the computers. I can't fix, it's like my car. I have to take it to an auto mechanic. I don't know how to fix my own engine. You have to rely on other people, to be honest. And unfortunately, it's a very, very common scam that people are calling and misrepresenting Microsoft or a computer program who's going to assist you in your cybersecurity threat when they are the threat themselves. It's very, very tough. Mhm.
I got knocked off of my email and couldn't register, wouldn't, and I did all of the things you're supposed to do, so I called the number on the email. I ended up with someone in Romania. I was getting a little nervous, but I said, wait a second, I actually called the provider. And he said, oh, it's our server, you'll be on within 24 hours, and I was.
Interesting.
But it was actually
They
their
patched you
number.
through.
Yeah.
So if it's a legitimate business and they have offices outside of the US, but you would like to speak to someone within the US, you are actually able, it is your right, to say to them, I want to be patched through to someone located within the US. And if it's a real business, they are required to. So if you were ever talking to someone and it was a scammer and you said that, they're going to hang up on you because they know that there's no one to patch you through to. So it'd be like a little red flag.
As soon as I hung up, as soon as I got off with him, I ran my malware.
Oh, good, yes.
Yeah, and my cleaner.
It is
And both.
so important to have proper cybersecurity.
I went to,
Yeah.
before I went to the provider, I was a little
Yeah.
nervous.
Antivirus software, anti-identity theft software, strong firewalls are so important. We should never be connected to the internet if we do not have those set in place on our devices. And we should really never do anything online unless we're at home in front of our computer system, whether it's a laptop, a desktop, whatever it is, without any of those systems in place, and on a private Wi-Fi connection. So a private Wi-Fi where nobody else can get into it. So locked. So we're locked, so where you need a password in order to access your internet. Absolutely, like your phone. Like all of our phones should have some sort of password to get into it, whether it's a thumbprint or a number, a code that we type in or a swipe that we do, whatever it might be. It's the same thing with our internet provider, our internet for our own personal systems. I know that a lot of towns and a lot of businesses have public Wi-Fi, coffee shops and libraries, and it's not that they are not trustworthy, it's that you just don't know who else is going to be connected to the same Wi-Fi. Even if you go somewhere, a coffee shop, and they say, oh yeah, you can use our Wi-Fi, but this is the password, everyone else in that room is using the same password. And there could be someone, honestly, at the table next to you that's trying to hack in. Pandora. You could, yes.
Would that be okay, just sitting?
As long as you're not connected to the internet, you should be okay. As long as you're not doing, I should say this, yes. As long as you're not online banking, you're not purchasing products online, things like that. And also, if you're doing anything online by way of making purchases, we need to make sure that we're using our credit card. Anything online that's purchased should be purchased with a credit card, and I want to take it even a step further and tell you, I have not used my debit card in over 6 years. I use my credit card for every single transaction that I make. And I do this because there are skimming devices out there, and they are sometimes unnoticeable, sometimes they're internal at the gas pump. It takes 1.5 minutes for someone to open up the system, put in a skimming device. Sometimes it's a plastic piece that's inserted over where we swipe our card. Essentially, anywhere you swipe your card could have a skimming device attached to it. A skimming device is also anything with a camera on it. It could be a cell phone with a camera, and you could be in line at the grocery store handing your cashier the card to pay for your groceries, and the person behind you could be snapping a quick picture of your phone. It's that simple. It could be at a restaurant where the server walks away with your card, and that particular server was paid by someone to have a little device, a little handheld skimming device in the middle of their palm, and for every swipe they get, they're paid $50. It could be an inside job, it could be an outside job, but there are skimming devices. And our information can be taken either way. And I want to use this as an example. Let's say someone got a hold of both of my debit card and my credit card information at the same time, and they used it. They made a whatever purchase for both of them. And I notice it on my bank statement, and I notice it on my bill. And I call my bank, and I call my credit card company, because we should do it immediately upon noticing something. I have to file a dispute with both of them. It takes 2 to 3 months for either your debit card, your bank account, or your credit card. 2 to 3 months to fill out paperwork, go through the dispute process. However, if it's your debit card, you're without that money until it's finalized, the dispute. If it's your credit card, you're never without that money, or you shouldn't be without that money. You're not liable for it immediately, if at all, as long as you've caught it quick enough. And I don't want anyone to get any piece of my information, but if they're gonna get it, I would prefer it to be the credit card.
You know, we've had a couple issues with the credit card and been taken care of immediately.
Yes.
Credit cards, they also have access to your bank now.
Yes, and because you're noticing quickly, the quicker you notice it and the quicker you contact them, the more likely it is that something can be done. And it's about the small transactions. Look at the $1, the $2, the $3. That's where the scammers are going to get us now, because they know that that's going to bypass the banks and bypass the credit card companies as unusual. And then when we see it on our statement, how often have we seen like a $1 charge and said, I cannot remember what that is, but whatever, it's just $1. Well, whoever put it there, if they did that to 1 million people, they just made $1 million. And it's that easy. And it's like a $52 billion industry. And this is these scammers' full-time job. This is what they're doing. And they're able to get away with so much because we're not, noticing, because we're not as vigilant as we should be, and we're not acting upon it and taking the time to report these things. And so be very aware, and not only should we be monitoring our statements as they come in and monitoring our bills, we have to be running annual credit reports. We absolutely have to. There was a big breach not long ago from one of the 3 major credit bureaus. We used to have them listed on our handout. We now have TransUnion and Experian. We're not telling people not to use Equifax. We're not saying don't use them. We're just saying be aware that there was a big breach, and just give it time and check in and do some research and see how the issue is being handled. And I want to say that a lot of people have felt since the breach happened that because they have never used Equifax directly, that they were not affected by it, and that's not how it works with the credit bureaus. You could have taken out a mortgage 20 years ago. Well, I don't know how long they've been established, but you could have taken out a mortgage, taken out a loan for a car, and anytime a credit check is done, or to check your credit to make sure if you're up to date on your score, whatever it is, it's done through any of the 3 credit bureaus, and they could have used Equifax, and you may not have done it directly, but they could have your information. So a credit freeze and a credit check should be done with each of the 3 major credit bureaus. You can do 1 a year from each of them. Don't do them at the same time, but you should do 1 a year from each of them. Mm-hmm.
Actually quite good once they got up and running.
Yes.
They have my credit locked up. If I was to do a purchase
Good.
that I had to do a credit date, I'd have to tell them you have to wait 48 hours.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things. We should be aware and of our own accounts. And if we have to put a freeze on our accounts, and then when we know we're going to make a big purchase, call them 2 days in advance, what is the big deal in the grand scheme of things? I would much rather have a freeze on each of my accounts than and me have to call them anytime I need something than for anybody to be able to get in there and open up an account. And we can have all of our ducks in a row. We can have our statements and our bills all look like they're accurate, and someone could still have a hold of our Social Security information, or still have a hold of any piece of information. Oftentimes we think, well, I don't have any money, so no one's coming after me. Or, I have bad credit, so no one's coming after me. They don't care about that, these scammers. Sometimes they just want our identity. They just want our Social Security number so they can take out passports, and they can get licenses in our name, or open up lines of credit but continue to pay them. Because that's how it works. Sometimes they just need that. They just need some sort of system, but they're going to pay for it because for some reason their own accounts, they're not working or whatever it is. So we just have to look, run those credit reports, know that there will be different information for each of them. I do not recommend this because I don't know why, but it can hurt your credit to do too many credit reports at once, or too close together. But let's just say you did, please do not do this, but if you did, if you ran your Equifax, your TransUnion, and your Experian all at once, and you looked at each of the 3 reports, they would all have different information on them. And that's why it's important to do at least one a year, but to know that you can receive one from each of them a year. So spread it out every 4 months if you'd like to do it. And really, really look, if your name is spelled correctly, make sure that all the accounts that you have open, if you know that you only have 2 credit cards and 1 checking account, you should only have 2 credit cards and 1 checking account. It should be there, and there shouldn't be anything extra. No initial should be off, no letter should be off in the spelling of your name. Even the smallest of discrepancies can actually be a big, big, big thing. And I think I just heard recently that only, as of like a month ago, only 50% of Americans had run a credit check and a credit report since the Equifax breach. And the credit reporting agencies were saying, the credit bureaus were saying it was almost a devastating number, that it had only been 50% of Americans that had done it. Massachusetts alone had 3 million people that were affected.
You know, I have 4 credit cards, and the only one that has ever called me, and I have had charges on 2 of them that have not been mine, that I picked up and I called. But Discover Card always has been the one that's called and said, did you just make a purchase? They tell me what it is. It's like the France or something. I said, no.
And this is exactly why, this is a great feature, and actually why we should call. And I tell people at every program, take a few hours this afternoon, call tomorrow, take a little bit of time, call your bank, call your credit card company, and ask them what features they offer you. Some credit card companies, every time you receive your bill, they give you your credit score. The score is different than the report. You still want to report every year, but they give you your number on every report. Some of them offer you the opportunity to receive a text message every time you make a purchase. Some people give you the opportunity, and it's free. Some people give you the opportunity for bi-monthly statements that you don't have to wait till the end of the month. You can get 2. That might be a charge. But call your bank, call your credit card company and say, what features do you have that I can set in place to know that I am being protected to the best of my ability and your ability. And every credit card company and bank will be different, believe it or not, and that's a great feature that Discover offers. Or it's evident that Discover is taking identity theft very seriously. And not that the others aren't, but that they seem to be the one that is continuing to call you. Or it also just means that that particular card, obviously there's a little bit of an issue. But it's good that they're contacting you, and it feels a little big brothery sometimes, you know. I had someone at a last program tell me that she was upset because she went to make a purchase. Her car was getting fixed, and I think it was like a $1,000 bill for the engine or something, and she was upset because her card was being swiped and it wasn't being used, and she felt embarrassed in that moment. And she found out later her credit card company wasn't letting the purchase go through because it was $1,000, and it was unusual to what she usually spends, and she was upset. And I said, I understand why you were upset, but in the future, call your bank ahead of time, call your credit card company ahead of time and say, I'm going to be making a purchase at this store on this day, or I'm buying a laptop, I'm buying a TV, something large, I'm getting my car fixed, it's going to be a large sum, please let it go through. And it's a little bit of a hassle on our part, but what if it wasn't her that tried to use her card for $1,000 and it went through? I would much rather have them stop it. I'd much rather have them watching my account like a hawk.
Citibank, interestingly enough, is the one that we have. What they will do is, we've noticed you get the call, and it's unusual. It's been an unusual purchase or activity on your credit card. Call a customer service line.
Yes.
They don't even tell you. They leave a message for you and so that we know you called them.
Yep.
That's on, and it was, it's on the back of your card. That's nice.
It's so nice, and it's honestly one of the only things we can do.
Made me think about why they're doing it now.
Yes, because they know. The banks and our credit card companies, they know that people are impersonating them. They know, and they don't want anyone to fall victim, and that's why they want to hear from us if they notice something small, because they would much rather have us call them and say, I don't know what this is, or this seems fishy, or this, as sort of preemptively and precautionarily, then afterwards say, somebody drained my account, or this happened, or I noticed this every month, but I didn't call because it didn't seem that big. They want those calls.
The one was It's actually totally bizarre, because somebody purchased like 150 different pairs of shoes
Oh my gosh.
online.
Wow.
And, you know, Citibank's like, no.
Yeah.
And blocked it and contacted.
And if you travel too, because that's unusual. They knew that that was odd. Yeah.
People to switch not to notice.
Right. And when you travel too, you want to call and let them know, I'm going to be out of state, I'm going to be out of the country, please do not turn my card off. This is, you know, and you can tell them where you're going to be specifically and where you might be spending and where you might be. It's just, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. But it's good. It's just about being, like I mentioned, just be vigilant and be diligent and cautious and aware. And it's okay to be a little paranoid. I'd rather be a little paranoid and a little cautious than not at all, because I'm more likely to question things and to not take things at face value. There's that saying, innocent until proven guilty. And I sort of live by guilty until proven innocent, and I will do my due diligence, and I will verify, and I will double check. And it's going to take me a little extra time than I probably have time for, but I'd much rather do that than unfortunately fall victim to something. It can take, what is the statistic? 350 hours of your own time to deal with identity theft, of your own time, 350 hours. Unbelievable. It's not worth it to get to that point, you know? Mm-hmm.
My daughter will call me if she sees a scam. She notices them at work, because she has to work on all her people that there's one, and don't answer it.
Yeah.
You know.
Good.
However-
And reporting it is important too. That's how something like that comes about. It just takes one person to report it to sort of spread the word. And then eventually the scammers have to change their tactic, and they will. They'll change their tactic, but I'd much rather keep them on their toes than have them keep us on our toes, you know? Let's keep reporting it and honestly utilize this. There are so many numbers, and even just visiting bbb.org for updates on scams. Our scam alerts portion is constantly being updated. Tomorrow there'll be a new scam, and next week there'll be a new scam, and next month there'll be a new one. They're not going anywhere, especially as technology is advancing and enhancing, and it's just about staying up to date. We are far less likely to fall victim to a scam, honestly, just by educating ourselves in a setting like this. And don't hesitate to reach out. Our customer care representatives are amazing, and they're happy to answer any question that they can, and if they can't answer the question, they'll never say, I don't know. They will always point you in the appropriate direction of where you may be able to get the right answer. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. Oh, my pleasure.
I'd like to get to my role here.
Sure. Yeah, I know this was scheduled for Robin with the Office of Consumer
She's in Boston, is she?
Her office is located in Boston. Do you want a few more of these in case people could?
Sure, I'll take it.
My pleasure. Of course. I was happy to be here.
And, you know, the sync